Welcome back, everybody, to the Excellence in Education podcast, sponsored by the Pike County School System. I'm your host, Jeff Vanderbeck, publisher of Appalachian Newspapers, Inc. I'm joined today by another very special guest, principal of Millard School, Jake Robinson. Jake's here to talk about some of the wonderful things that he's been through, what's going on at his school, and some of the kids and some of the teachers. So, Jake, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Vanderbilt.
You call me Mister, and I keep looking. Call me Jeff, please. So, Jake, tell me about yourself, who you are, where you're from, where you went to school, and all those neat things.
So my name is Jake Robinson. I'm the principal at Millard School. I'm a graduate from Shelby Valley High School of 2011. After graduating high school, I went to UPike. I started in pre-law, and then I transitioned into middle school education, math, and social studies.
We talked earlier about your passion for wanting to help people. So you made a transition. You obviously wanted to help people, which is the reason why you went to pre-law, and then you transitioned to becoming an educator.
Mm.
How was that transition for you? And what was there a light switch that went off? Said, "Listen, I really want to do this," because when you become a lawyer, you make lots of money. You become a teacher, you do it for the love of teaching. What was that light switch, or what was that aha moment that you experienced that said, "I just want to go into teaching"?
So I actually worked at Baird & Baird Law Firm right down the road here,
Right.
all through college. And I can't say enough good things about that family. They were excellent to me, and I learned a whole lot about the workforce and responsibility and that kind of thing from that family. Um, but I just felt like something was missing. I had the opportunity to go on some depositions with a couple of them. I knew that I always wanted to help people, but I think during that process I found out that I really wanted to help kids.
Sure.
I had so many good teachers when I was very blessed my entire tenure as a student. With just excellent teachers. And I think it's really important that as adults, we realize that and give that back to kids because, doctors and lawyers, again, I hope my children become doctors and lawyers. Those are excellent professions. But at the end of the day, me personally, education is paramount. It's the forefront of it, of any career because it all begins with us. If there's no education, you don't have doctors, you don't have lawyers.
Sure.
And not just that, some kids go to a trade. If you can inspire one of those kids, you have to have mechanics, you have to have HVAC and plumbers and all those good things, electricians. And I feel like education is the foundation for all of those things.
So education is a stepping stone to other things that are there, and that's what your philosophy is all about. So we got to educate the kids and give them the creativity. You mentioned a word about inspiring people. It's not like when we're teaching kids, we have to inspire them to be great, to do great things and think that the world is their oyster. We have to give inspiration. It's not like, just, math is 2 and 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 7, like everybody else knows. It's inspiring them to be creative, to think outside the box, to come up with critical thinking, to solve problems. How has that affected you, or what have you seen as an educator on how to teach children when it comes to being critical thinking and all for critical thinking?
Well, I tell you, I kind of have a different viewpoint, I guess, than most. I think if you can just inspire, you got to find out what they're interested in, for one. Uh, but secondly, I think the most important thing you can do is teach these kids some character. Um, our school's motto, for example, is raise the bar. And I tell these kids every morning, it's very simple. This is the last thing I say every morning on the announcements. I say, be respectful, be responsible, and be ready to learn. If we do those things, we'll continue raising the bar on Mustang Mountain. And I feel like anything that you do in life, if you're respectful, you're responsible, and you're always ready to learn and eager to learn, and you have that sense of pride and ownership about yourself, you're going to excel in anything you do. And I think a lot of it's mindset. And I think we miss that with our kids. Unfortunately, a lot of these kids are not very parented. I mean, we have a lot of kids that are raised by grandparents.
Right.
That doesn't mean those kids can't succeed. They can. But I think it's really important to instill that sense of pride and ownership in what you do and a mentality. Like when I show up every day to my job, I want to outwork the person next to me. And at the end of the day, that's the brand that I want to leave
Sure.
on these kids.
Well, that's the competitiveness in you from your basketball days, I guess, that you want to be better and so on. You mentioned that some of the kids are being raised by grandparents. Do you find it a more of a challenge to be able to educate kids who are being raised by grandparents versus kids who are being raised by parents, or is it all the same? One model does not fit all. I understand that, but what are the challenges you see right now at this point?
So I'm going to speak as a teacher.
Okay,
I was 7 years as a teacher. That was my first passion.
gotcha.
Being a principal was not what I intended when I got this. Went into this field. Um, of course, if you have a kid that they come every day and they're taken care of, they're not worried about where their next meal is going to be,
Sure.
and their parents are helping them with their homework every night. That's easy. That's easy, and those kids are going to excel, and that's great. I wish all of our kids were that way, but unfortunately, that's just not reality. But I will tell you, if you can take a kid if you can show a little interest in those kids that maybe don't get the attention at home, if you can find something that they're passionate about, you can integrate this stuff, maybe not in the middle of your math class, but if you're out in the hallway talking to these kids, if you make any, little extra effort for these kids, those are the type of kids that will run through a brick wall for you.
Do you find, I mean, as a principal, do you find that you have got to teach your teachers how to teach the children and how to learn that, look for those things to make sure that, Joey or Janie, who may be left behind, we have to give that person, those children, a little bit more love because they need a little bit more. Not that they're slower. It's just that they may have a complex, or they just don't know, or they're not getting anything outside of the school. Do you find yourself teaching the teachers how to be better teachers?
I'll be honest with you. I learn as much from my staff as I give to them. I'm very blessed with. I've got a very loving veteran staff that I mean that they're very proficient in their craft.
Sure.
And that was one thing. My first year I was there as an assistant, so I'm learning everybody, and I'm in the classrooms, and I'm just so impressed with like the teaching, and I thought to my during that first year, really, we've got this down. I think what we need to start focusing on now is how to make these kids intrinsically motivated to be here, because and education trends, they come and go. Right now we're in this Kagan. I don't know if you've heard of Kagan, but it's an excellent
Right.
engagement
Sure.
tool, and we utilize it. It's awesome. There was no Kagan when I was in school, and I'm sure when my kids or grandkids or whatever, it'll change 2 or 3 different times. You know, the art of teaching is excellent, but if you've got 20 kids in the room who feel like that you don't care about them or that are not interested in what you have to say, it doesn't matter if Albert Einstein's teaching them. They're not going to
They're not gonna learn,
they're
right.
not going to learn. And to me, that's why I focus so much. First thing in the morning at 7:45, I'm telling these kids every day: be respectful, be responsible, be ready to learn, and raise the bar today.
Sure.
And that's also for my staff. We had a PD day before the first day of school, before we brought kids in the building, and me included. We all sat down in the library, and all the certified staff had flashcards. And I said, I want everybody to think of one thing that you can do this year that's going to raise the bar here. One thing that you're going to go the extra mile for to raise the bar of expectations for these kids and for yourself. And we all wrote them down, and they are still plastered. All of those Post-it notes are plastered in the hallway, the middle school hallway outside where the kids
Sure.
can see it. On the other side of the hall, we have our KSA scores from last year and how we compared to everybody in the county. So, I think it's really important, and my 3rd through 8th grade walk through that hallway every day. So they're seeing that not only, we're not just asking you all to raise the bar and to exceed
Sure,
expectations.
you've asked the staff to do that.
We're doing it also.
Sure.
Yeah, we every
When the staff did that, was there anything unique you found out about what they wrote on those flashcards?
most of it was about data. Is what I found. So, and talking about raising kids to proficiency is our goal, which is 80% on our assessments, and most of it was data driven, and that was another change that I've seen, from my time at Millard to now, is the teachers are really invested in making sure that these kids are achieving it and having success, because I think everybody loves having success, and kids included. Especially like the kids you're talking about that maybe they're with their grandparents, or maybe they're in a bad situation at home. if you give a kid like that a little taste of success, they're going to come to school every day ready to go.
And want to
That-
and want to
and
enjoy that
that's their drive.
and foster on that. Sure.
And think of think of like your favorite teachers.
Most of them are dead.
You probably have 3 or 4, but I guarantee, and this is another thing that I told them during that PD day. I guarantee you, the people that you're thinking of, you probably don't remember the favorite assignment they give you. You remember that they took an interest in you, and you felt like they cared about you.
Right.
And in turn, really, I had I don't want to say like specific people because I'll leave people out. I had
Sure.
so
No, I
many
got you.
but I had such a good social studies teacher when I was in uh, middle school at Dorton in the 6th grade. And I mean, he just took such an interest in me, and he could be up there talking about anything, and I would be listening. And that's the kind of impact that I want our school to have on our students.
Sure. When you mentioned when you were going to school, the opportunities for careers were a little bit limited, or limited
Mhm,
more so than they are now.
mhm.
Right now, we've got so many different opportunities. What do you find different between what you went to school and what you were doing when you were in high school, grade school, and elementary school versus what these kids are experiencing now? Because right now, there's so many great opportunities available to them, whereas 20 years ago, when you were going to school or whatever it was, those opportunities were just they were finite. Now it's infinite.
Yeah, well, I think that was a big gap that we had during that time because, basically, my group, everybody was told, "You either go to college or you're not gonna make it." Right? There wasn't a choice. And, you have so many, and I can name so many kids, I can name their names to you that I had in class that, they wasn't gonna go to college. I could have told you in 6th grade they wasn't gonna go to college,
Sure.
but I knew they were hard workers. And I seen two of them in line at Subway yesterday, getting lunch. It made my day.
Sure.
They're both working they're both mechanics. They make great money for their
Sure.
family. They both have families, and at the end of the day, that's all you need to give these kids is inspiration to do what you love, and to have some characteristics: be respectful, be responsible, be ready to learn. No matter what job you have, you do those 3 things, and you're going to have success.
And you're gonna have a lot of success doing that way. That sounds like a great formula. So what was the inspiration for you to want to come back to Pike County and be a teacher in Pike County?
I've always been in Pike County. I've never left.
You sound like Eric Kahn.
Yeah, I've never left. But no, I love this community. I love the people in it. Like I told you before, I was at Valley Elementary before, great community. I'm at Millard now, excellent community. And I want to stay here. And I would love I've got 3 daughters. I would love for my 3 daughters to stay right here with me.
Nice.
So for that to happen, we have to have some sort of future.
Sure.
Like the kids we have here, we don't really realize it, but these kids we have right now, I depend on them.
Right, yeah.
My future is invested in my 606 kids at Millard School. And I tell my parents all the time, when they call, I want them to have the same feeling that I have when I let my 2 girls out and put them in the building.
Sure.
Now I know they're going to be safe, and they're going to get the best education that they can receive in Pike County
And
at
if
school.
and if they get educated and come back here to give back to the community, that's a bigger plus.
Hmm.
So you mentioned that you were a teacher for several years, and then you went in to become an administrator. What was the inspiration, and why did you want to become a principal?
Well, I just feel like I can have so much more of an impact.
Yeah, but as a teacher, you got 20 kids in one classroom. Now you got 600 kids. Doesn't that add stress to you?
Well, somebody, I can't remember exactly how they worded it. The other day came to me, and we were at my little girl's mini volleyball game, and it was a parent, and he came to me, and he said, "I don't see how you do it." He said, "Does this not drive you crazy?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Look at all these kids." And I said, I don't really realize how serious my job is until I have to think about it. So don't remind me.
Yeah, right.
But no, I mean, it's such a blessing. It's something I really don't think about. I wish we had 600 more kids in the building. Uh, I love kids, and I love watching them succeed. And I love being a part of, a program that we have at our school, to where they can. And our staff is so invested and bought into this, ability to instruct these kids, inspire these kids, and watch them succeed. And our community is too. One of the most impressive things I think I've seen in my career, we were taking the KSA test last year.
Right.
So you're testing 3rd through 8th grade.
Okay.
For us, that's a large amount of kids. And we had 4 days during the testing window. Not one kid was absent from 3rd grade through 8th grade,
Really?
which, that's something I can't control, and that shows me that our community is bought in to this essence of wanting these kids to succeed. That they're making sure those kids got there that day and had a normal day with a normal routine and got breakfast and was ready to test.
Yeah, because there's a lot of kids who are kind of smart, but they are bad test takers. So by virtue of the fact that you had 100% participation in that tells me that your kids were prepped, they were ready to go, and they were wanting to take this test to make sure that they can get this thing going so they can have great numbers and participation opportunities.
Well, and I think that goes too to like how we were talking earlier about inspiring these kids, and again, it doesn't matter like what I'm up there saying. If I've inspired you, I've got you.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I've got your attention, and I think these kids, they knew that, and they know that it's important to the teachers, and they want to please those teachers because they know the teachers love them.
Sure.
And have went the extra mile for them. Uh,
Exactly. So let me ask you this. What is unique about your school? I mean, what is there if you could just put your finger on something that says, or a couple things, the most unique thing about my school is X, and here's how we foster that.
which I don't know where to start with that, Mr. Manbeck, but I'll tell you.
You call me that again, I'm gonna send Randy after you.
Well, uh, you know, our school truly is a family. I mean, and I know others probably say that, but I mean, truly is a family, and we try to celebrate these kids as much as we can while maintaining high expectations. That that's one thing I think. You can overdo the celebrating sometimes.
Sure.
You showing up for school every day, you can't get a sucker every day you show up for school. You know what I'm saying? If you got perfect attendance for a month, we do a certificate and we celebrate you that way. Trying hard on a test, that's expectation for us now. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And I think like we have the the staff and the community have established a mindset now of you know excellence, and these kids want to succeed. I think our school does a really good job of instructing kids based on the Kentucky standards. I think our staff really gets along with each other. I think our staff has each other's backs and works together, to culminate an environment for these kids to where that they know that they're safe in the classroom and they know people care about them in the classroom and they're ready to learn in the
Sure.
classroom.
What, if you had to complete this sentence, how would you do it? Every day I, Jake Robinson, get out of bed, and what motivates me to get to my job and go to school is what?
Kids. It's always about kids. I,
What's
every,
the most important part of that, though? You mentioned. I mean, you just mentioned about kids coming to school, and it's not just showing up. It's raising the bar. You're here. You show up for a day, that's great. But if you're here for an entire month, you get a certificate.
Mhm.
So, do you have other incentives for kids to participate
Yeah, so
and raise the bar?
we celebrate our honor roll. We celebrate our MAP scores. Proficiency in MAP scores. Uh, and that's another thing that's so unique about our kids. We take the MAP test 3 times a year. I don't know if you're really familiar with it or not, but they correlate with the KSA
Sure.
on the novice, apprentice, proficient, distinguished level. And I was in one of our 8th grade rooms during the winter window, and when they finished, they raised their hand, and we go look at their score and write it down, or tell them whether they grew from the fall window or not, whatever. And this girl raised her hand. I took her score, and I said, just by kind of being familiar with the score, I said, "That's really good. That's probably right on the line right there of distinguished." And she said, "No, Mr. Robinson, that's 2 points above distinguished." And I was like,
So she knew
"Well, it's that ownership and pride."
exactly.
She knew what her goal was, and I attribute that to the teachers, because somebody somewhere has had to tell her or show the whole
Sure.
class, this is what you need to get,
Right.
you know. And I think that that's what makes our school so unique is these kids truly strive to be the
To
best.
be better. And, what you said there is that the student knew she was 2 points above that
Mhm.
level. The teacher knew that the student was there. So you
Didn't
had
put an idea.
yeah, well, you probably had to have some kind of instruction on that to let the teachers know you've gotta take a vested interest in that. So that's good. Jake, it sounds like you got a great thing going on over at Millard. I'm really happy for what you're doing. I know the students should be very, very, happy to be at your school. Parents should be proud of what you got going on. I understand you're going to a volleyball meet tonight or match tonight?
Yes, that's another thing too. Our sports program's doing excellent. Our cheerleading team won the county championship, first time in school history this year.
Nice,
We had
congratulations.
several runners up for boys county tournaments in their respective levels. Our dance team was county runners up, and now hopefully, I'm going to go watch the volleyball girls tonight win a county championship.
Knock wood.
Knock on wood.
Good luck to you. Jake, thank you for being my guest today. Thank you for joining us on the Excellence in Education Pike County Schools podcast, hosted by me, Jeff Vanderbeck, publisher of the Appalachian News Express. Jake, good luck. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time. I wish you the best of luck for you, your family, and most importantly, your school and your community, which seems like you're doing a fantastic job for.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.